Hello and welcome to Money Matters. With our borders restricted for nearly 2 years, homegrown travel businesses have switched to a long-term game plan, hoping to survive until the pandemic finally ends. As vaccinations allow countries to slowly open up to visitors, some places like Hong Kong have decided to wait the virus out. Zella Chin reports on how that might affect the travel industry.
On this hazy Wednesday afternoon at the Causeway Bay Typhoon Shelter, this group of people are heading out on a traditional three-mast Chinese sailing ship.
Duckling is the antique. It has a 66 years old history. Actually, this is last remained authentic traditional junk in Hong Kong.
Hazen Tan owns a 26-year-old travel agency. He bought the antique junk in 2015 to enable visitors to experience the city by sea.
Before the pandemic, we running the boat every day, 7 sailing a day, from 2:30 to 8:30. Our target person is overseas visitors. So, of course, we need to introduce Victoria Harbour, which is famous in the world.
Since the borders closed at the beginning of 2020, making it difficult for visitors to come to the city, Hazen targets local customers.
We will accept the charter requests and some company events, but also not only the sailing, we do also the educational. We introduce the broad history and the culture to the student.
An hour-long journey around Victoria Harbour costs about $180 per person, and it's $6,000 an hour to charter the boat. But local customers can't make up for the lack of overseas visitors. Before the pandemic, the travel agency used to have $400 million in annual turnover.
Majority businesses are handling the inbound tourists. We have a coach company, and we have the junk, the duckling. So all those companies are totally affected by this pandemic. We have almost 100% business gone.
So tell me, how many employees did you have working here before the pandemic, and how many do you have now?
We have almost 120 before, but nowadays 20-something. Some of the department has been closed, and before everyone in the company is specialized in one job, but nowadays maybe multitask. And also we close our overseas branch.
And he sold some property to keep his business running. Hazen expects most Hong Kongers will stay in town again this holiday season. So he's created some staycation packages.
For example, 2 nights or 3 nights staying in Hong Kong hotels, and with some local tour, just like they go aboard to Thailand or to Malaysia.
Over in Central, Girish Junjunwala had to adapt to the lack of international visitors. He owns 4 hotels in the city. He converted 2 of his properties into quarantine hotels, booking rooms to recent arrivals to Hong Kong.
If you're in the hotel industry, you're either doing a staycation business or you're doing a quarantine business, because there's no travelers. So you have to do either one of them. And we kind of embrace the quarantine business.
The Hong Kong government mandates people arriving in the city from overseas must stay in designated hotels for quarantines of 7, 14, or 21 days, depending on the country of departure and the traveler's vaccination status. The other 2 hotels cater to long-stay customers, that is, people who are renting for a week or more.
There's Hong Kong work permit holders who are coming to work in Hong Kong who need a place to stay and did not know how long they're going to be here. So for them, this was the best option, to stay in a hotel room, but to have the flexibility of a month-to-month lease.
The occupancy rate at the quarantine hotels is about 80%, and the long-stay hotels is about 90%. Revenues for the hotel group are 20% less than 2018, and profitability is also down too. Girish says the costs are high for the quarantine guests.
They're in their rooms 24 hours. The air conditioning is running full. Now, during the hot summer, it's full on. So our utility bills went up 3 or 4 times. And then, the government says you have to change the people who are delivering food, delivering packages, they have to change their PPE outfit every time they visit someone, every time they go and make a drop-off.
The Hong Kong government has maintained a zero COVID-19 policy during the pandemic, with tough border restrictions and quarantines to minimize the risk of infections.
In our fight against the epidemic over the past 21 months, I and my colleagues, as well as the HA and our expert teams, have strictly implemented, with scientific justifications, the strategies of guarding against the importation of cases and the resurgence of local infections.
Even though Goresh's hotel business has remained profitable during the pandemic, he still wants the borders to reopen.
I wish that at some point we can reduce the number of quarantine days, open our city back, and bring it back to its full glory, to what Hong Kong really is and what it deserves. And the requirements for Hong Kong as an international city requires travel.
International visitor arrivals have dropped by 98% compared with before the pandemic, and domestic travelers can't make up the difference. The travel industry has suffered, and some businesses have even shut down. But in other parts of the world, the borders are starting to reopen slowly, and tourism is rebounding. Can Hong Kong learn from their example?
This research manager at a market intelligence provider says Western Europe is driving the recovery of the global air travel industry, thanks to quarantine-free cross-border travel since the summer. He says Western Europe air travel accounts for 40% of global trips in 2021, and they are spending more per trip than the pre-pandemic days.
They are still more willing to stay longer because they are willing to take the chance to meet more clients or even to meet their own internal company's colleagues, because they have been apart for so long, and they're willing to build the relationship and human interaction back.
A few countries in Asia are also planning to reopen their borders.
And Australian government also announced the plan for them to reopen the border once the vaccination rates hit the 80% benchmark. And moreover, apart from Singapore and South Korean government has previously announced that they will change the policy and live with the COVID virus. Malaysian government is considering to reopen the border to neighboring market like Singapore in November. So it seems like there's a consensus between governments across the globe to trying to reopen the border by the end of this calendar year.
Meanwhile, Herbert expects Hong Kong to follow Beijing's lead on when to reopen borders with the world, likely sometime in the third quarter of 2022.
The border reopening between Hong Kong and China is the top priority. And if the Beijing government attitude is willing to open the border to the rest of the world, then it's much more easier for the Hong Kong government to make such a decision.
Hazen is more optimistic. He expects the Hong Kong mainland border to reopen in the first quarter of next year.
Once the border open, then after 3 to 6 months, the business will be intensively rebound.
Alibaba posted a lower-than-expected 29% growth in revenue for the September quarter. It forecasts 20 to 23% growth for fiscal 2022, short of the 27% analysts were projecting. Shoppers have become more cautious amid coronavirus outbreaks, and tech share values have been eroded by a regulatory crackdown. The share's nearly 20% drop was the largest since the company listed in Hong Kong in 2019. The shock contributed to a $163 billion loss in market value among Chinese tech stocks. China's aviation regulator has told airlines it is satisfied design changes Boeing made to its crisis-plagued 737 MAX plane could resolve safety problems. The announcement is a sign it is closer to lifting a more than 2-year flight ban on the model. The Civil Aviation Administration of China invited airlines to give feedback on a proposed airworthiness directive for the MAX by the end of this month. The US and Europe last year sought industry feedback on similar proposed directives before ultimately approving the return of the 737 MAX. A return to the skies in China, the world's biggest aircraft market, would be a major boon to Boeing. Stockbroker Jefferies said a China directive would be worth a 5% boost to the stock price.
When we come back, Money Matters looks at the value buyers see in nano flats. Stay with us. Welcome back to Money Matters. Nano flats have gained a reputation for being too small, but they sell fast as they're the only affordable option for many home buyers. Alice Kahn looks at whether these tiny homes offer good value.
Homes no larger than 260 square feet have been selling well over the past decade. Some flats are no bigger than 200 square feet in saleable area. The saleable area means the total floor area of the property, the balcony, and utility platform. It also includes the space occupied by internal partitions and columns. This one-year-old property on 63 Pak Phalam Road in Sai Yin Pun offers a total of 332 units. 91 of them are studio flats. Some have saleable areas between 209 square feet and 258 square feet. They're regarded as nano flats. We didn't get the chance to check out the smallest flats in the project, but we did get inside one of the studio flats. The saleable area of this unit is 275 square feet. The walls and balcony take up 20.6% of the area, so the usable living space is 218 square feet. The owner is selling the property with a current tenant for more than $9 million. Xuan Luo works for an investment bank in Central and rents the flat for $15,000.
If like the big flat is in good location, also the building is new, I think the rent should be over 20,000 or 30,000. Considering my rent limit is 15,000, so I think choose a small but good location place.
Xuan thought the size was fine when she first had a look.
When I come in, actually there's no furniture because the window is quite large, so I didn't feel it's that small. But later, when I put in more stuff in the studio, I start feeling the space is a bit limited.
She put a single bed at one end of the flat, but it's still close to the entrance.
Show me? Yeah, maybe let's walk to the bed and let's count how many steps we need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So even 9 steps I can from my door to the bed. It's very limited space, very small.
Then would you prefer a bigger size bed or double bed?
Of course, I prefer the double bed, but because of the limited space, I have to choose the single size bed. Otherwise, I don't have the space to put my wardrobe.
She wanted to separate the sleeping area from the working area and the open kitchen.
It's really hard. I explored a lot of furniture stores and finally find this table because its width is just fit the wall from my bed to the open kitchen. So let me show you when I extend this table. Yeah, if my friend is here, we can eat food here. And I can put it back when my friend is living because if I keep it extended, I cannot go through.
She doesn't have room for a sofa. Xuan doesn't cook because the smell would stink up the whole flat. But she says the flat has a lot of useful built-in storage cabinets. The toilet is also okay with a large storage area behind the mirror. Xuan says she likes the large windows and view. The small living environment affects her social life.
I really want to invite my friends on weekends come to my place to like playing cards, watching movies, or have a good dinner. But because of the limited place, I can only be invited, not like invite my friends.
Schwan is considering a move to a one-bedroom flat after the lease ends. So we checked out a one-bedroom flat on a higher floor of the same building. The saleable area of this flat is 305 square feet. The asking price is $10.8 million. The actual livable area is only 247 square feet. Our agent Jackie showed us around.
The living room area do have about 110 square foot, and also do have the open plan kitchen.
This is open plan kitchen, but is it well equipped?
It's quite well equipped. As you can see, it's got all the appliances like washer dry here, and then 2 head cooker, range hood, and the steamer.
The flat is not very big, but you can still squeeze some furniture into the living area.
So you can put 2 seats over here.
But it should be very narrow.
Yeah, of course, since it's a narrow flat. And then a TV on the wall, and probably a coffee table in front of the sofa.
How about a dining table? I don't think you can put any dining table.
You can fit a standard dining table. Probably you need to make a folding dining table mount on this wall.
Can we still move around with those furniture?
You could, but of course then it's not much space left if you fill in all the furniture.
The living room has large windows and has a balcony that overlooks the harbor. Then we checked out the bedroom, which is 50 square feet.
Is it hard to put any furniture?
You could put a bed on this side, probably double bed, and then the wardrobe on this side. Since the ceiling height is very quite high in this apartment, it's about 9'7" height, so you can put a bigger wardrobe in this area.
Then if you put a double bed here, then you don't have room to move around.
You can't walk around the bed. Definitely, you need to climb the bed from this side. Yeah, the bed will fulfill the room.
You'd have to change the layout of the flat if you wanted more or larger furniture.
You can knock down this wall in between the bedroom and the living room to turn into the studio unit. Then you will have more spaces and feeling bigger. You can get fit a bigger bed, probably like up to the queen size bed.
The bathroom is about 30 square feet and has storage space behind the mirror. It's important to remember that 1/5 of the saleable area is not living space.
Because the width of the enclosing wall, the structural wall, as well as the green feature, which is the balcony, total area of the enclosing wall, the structural wall, and the balcony actually accounted for around 20% of the total sellable area of the flat itself.
Concrete doesn't cost but that much, but when they sell to you, you obviously cannot live inside the concrete. In UK, they are talking about net area. When they talk about net floor area, meaning it's internal area. So, meaning all balcony will be separately quoted, all wall thickness will be completely being excluded.
There's been criticism of developers building these nano-sized units.
After you work, you go back to a flat. It's actually that tiny. It's just, I think there will be a lot of a mental problem for that.
In response, the government says it is considering minimum size limits to improve the living environment.
Forcing the developer to build larger doesn't really help the housing market because these people will not be able to afford a larger unit. It's mainly because they are demand and supply. They want to have their own little paradise, they want to have their own little space rather than living in subdivided rooms.
Price-wise, it is affordable to buy a nano flat. The price for a 300 square foot flat is already very high. If developers build larger flats, it is not useful to me because a small unit is enough for me.
Joseph says nanoflats only accounted for 0.1% of all the private flats in the city. He thinks the situation is not that bad. He suggests the government relax mortgage restrictions to help homebuyers purchase larger units.
The government is now having this sort of mortgage restriction of 10 million. Anything above 10 million, you have to pay 50% deposit. So meaning your LTV is only down to 50. So that drives a lot of developers to build smaller and smaller in order to get a higher unit rate. Once you relax this, people can be actually more eligible to live in a slightly larger unit.
Scientists are targeting a December launch for the much-delayed next-generation James Webb Space Telescope. It's a satellite observatory towering 3 stories tall, designed to peer further into space and further back into time than any other spacecraft. Webb is an international collaboration between NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency.
James Webb Space Telescope is Hubble's scientific successor, and I like to think of it as NASA's vehicle for the deepest space exploration that humanity can do.
Originally supposed to fly more than a decade ago, the telescope's launch has faced countless delays. The latest 7-month delay was attributed to the pandemic and technical issues. Set to soar on an Ariane rocket, Webb is destined to orbit a point 1.6 million kilometers from Earth, well beyond astronauts' reach. The orbiting Hubble telescope, by contrast, was repeatedly serviced by shuttle astronauts following its 1990 launch. The Webb primary mirror is about 7 times the size of Hubble's. That allows the team to look at some of the first stars and galaxies that were formed after the Big Bang. Last month, the $10 billion telescope arrived at Europe's spaceport in South America, a significant hurdle on its long journey to launch. Fingers crossed that is intended to be the shortest leg on its journey into space.
That's the show. Thanks for watching. Next time on Money Matters, a conversation with the CEO of Cyberport about the opportunities for local tech companies in the Greater Bay Area. See you then. Good night.